concept that needs to be defined because it's still very much a foreign term in the vocabulary of black folks. As this approach to study shows, we need to know the meaning of words.
Roland, and this is Morris nationality 102.
The meaning of things. The concept itself is out of a hidden closet of esotericism in the Western world. And the reason I say Western world because we already know that the idea and entitlement of more is a part of Masonic literature. And Masonic entitlement, again, as a hidden factor. The verification of that is Elizabeth Cooper's book, Medieval Freemasonry, which they still have not been able to put on their shelves. That Elizabeth gives the term Freemason in her footnotes. And in the bottom of the page 12, her definition of Freemason is, no, excuse me, she gives Freimaur, the German term for free Moor. She defines this as Freemason. Okay. So again, it's brought forward and then re-hidden. Okay. Which got to be and is still a problem for those that are in search of identity. The issue of culture in our world is that of disorientation. A group of people who have a vague idea of who they are. And understanding the psychology of identity, we then are able to see why there is so much disoriented behavior happening in our world. In light of this dynamic energy that is prompting people to express themselves. That's the validity of cosmic or astrological energy. When there is confusion in a human being's psychology or any life form, and by that I mean, if you recall several years ago, dogs were the assailant of many crimes simultaneously in America. The pit bull was being reported almost weekly in different parts of America as attacking people. They were not attacking other dogs. They were attacking people. And when you see a same type of event happening in different territories, by that I mean this state, then on the map that state, then on the map that state, then you know it's the same energy affecting a certain angle of location in terms of what astrology follows to report the influence of planetary rays or planetary force. The same happens when the dynamics of certain planets affect the human psychology. The brain, being a gland, is one of the circuits of response to planetary energy in explaining how astrology works in and on human nature is through our glandular structure and our response to that energy upon our glands. So the idea of the returning introduction, and it is a returning introduction because two men in our current contemporary history reported Moorish science and Moorish history at different periods of this current history, one of them being Benjamin Banneker Bey, who is referred to as Big Ben Bey. And to my delight, Hakim Bey found or got a photograph of Benjamin Banneker's fez in the Washington Library. Also, I had also seen a cigar in Cleveland, Ohio, that is named after Ben Bey. And unfortunately, I didn't buy it. And when I went back, I couldn't remember where the store was. That's been almost 20 years ago. And I still regret it to this day, you know. It's one of those artifices of this level of information that's so well cloaked that it is very important that whatever small amounts can be brought forward should be. The three keys that we are constant about to verify the fact of who we are and to understand that from this vantage point, human thinking on the levels of the dark-skinned, broad-nosed, thick-lipped, and furled-haired human being known as Moors can perform at higher levels with a corrected consciousness. Correct thinking. Correct thinking is positive thinking, appreciation of self, a virtual love of yourself and those who look like you. When you are honest and truthful with yourself helps you in that truthfulness. The relationship of the three levels of each one of us as beings, human, mental, and spiritual beings, is to correlate these three so that they function as a oneness. That's the mental work. That's supposed to be the cultural work. That the educational system is supposed to be coordinating the child towards balance. They know that. They just simply don't do that because their priority is given by the contemporary industry that has control of the workforce. In the industrial age, they wanted employees to do manual work, to work and operate machinery. Culture as an identity, culture as a refinement was not considered a priority in building a great industrial empire. So it was put on not the back burner, hell, it was put in the basement. So the return of this idea is certainly very timely in this acting out of literally millions of black children. Now that's not to say that the majority of our children are criminal or violent or deviants or certainly are not demonic, but there certainly are all of those such classes within our total group. We're being somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to maybe 50 million strong. A couple million is not bad in terms of the group, except that those small pockets of spoiled human personalities, spoiled rotten to the core, affects all of us because they're everywhere at once. And because we, lacking our spiritual and mental stature, have little or no defense against it. So we yield to it. They are virtually, parents, literally frightened of their children. Not just the boys, they're frightened of their daughters as well. So in getting to the three keys, identity, self-knowledge, and self-revelation, those are the three central thematics of who we are, what we are, and where we are. Identity, self-knowledge, and self-revelation. The concept of identity must begin with name, and where we are in terms of defining the concept name becomes expedient so that we don't make the continued assumption that we know what a word is because we use it. As a young brother threw back at me when I asked him what was his name, and he said John, and I said, well, what does John mean? He said, John means John. Well, that's not quite true. So getting to identity gets to be a matter of factualizing first, because the most important concept here is we're not dealing with belief. We're dealing with knowledge. We want to be able to know and to prove or verify the body of knowledge that we study and espouse, so that we bypass two levels. One, the conflict with believers and the problem of getting to the higher level of consciousness. You cannot get there by belief. You get there by knowing. Your higher mind will not let you in if you only believe. That's why the precept, the maxiom in the scriptures is, man, know thyself. It does not say believe thyself. Man, know the truth. It doesn't say believe the truth. Knowledge opens the higher doors of divine mind in which we live and move and have our being. The three places that we are to search and research for this identity, self-knowledge, and self-revelation is history, the Bible, I'll abbreviate this one, and the dictionary. This is a misnomer. This is a Eurocentric concept that allows those that chronicleize our records to manipulate and give the point of view of that past to their children, then matter-of-factly to ours. Yes?
How about other said holy books?
That's a very good question, and just as I wrote that, it came to me that we cannot rely upon Quran, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam for that identification. The reason why is that the system used in the Bible is not the same systematic approach to Quran, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and other books. The Kabbalistic system is an ancient Moorish system translated to what is now referred to as a, quote, Jewish or Judaic or system of Judaism. The Cushites did not have to do that. They had their pantheon of gods. The Muslim does not have a pantheon of gods. In fact, it omitted that pantheon from which they got the source of the ayats for Quran. By they, I don't mean a group of them, only two. A divine man called Gabriel, who helped another black man called Muhammad Rasulullah to structure over a given period of time the scriptural verses of the 99 chapters of Quran. Which brings me to this remembrance here. Where's my other chart? I'll get that in a minute. The concept we're looking for is not his story, and that's a valid word of lexicogrammatic writing in terms of code word. His story is exactly what the word means. Him being the European writing about someone else's records of past. What we're looking for are our records of our past. And that's a difference. Those records of our past are from our ancestral point of view, not his. Thereby, the validity of Afrocentric and Eurocentric, meaning the African's point of view, center of thinking, center of viewing self, family, community, and world, as opposed to a European view of community, family, worldview. Before the transition of Yosef ben Yochanan, that's what 98% of colored Negro Americans had, was a European point of view. You know, Frantz Fanon coined this from the distance of Algeria when he said the only alternative that the African has is to become white. You know, but he first announced that he was not cosmically conscious and was not illumined, and it pretty much run into an intellectual blank wall in terms of where the African could go from the disadvantage point he was in at the time that Fanon was writing. This was even after the Algerian Revolution that they thought was going to be a success, and some, I guess even then, some Boudelays turned around and turned the government back over to the Illuminati. You know? So from his vantage point, I guess he was pretty much correct at that point. At that point, it seemed to be no place for the African to go, being the subservient class. Then the refound concept of the African in America, the Negro colored fellow and his clan, who discovered he's not a Negro, not colored, and not a fellow, has been virtually the greatest revelation of this millennia for us in this discovery that is gradually dawning upon the masses. The first part of that was going from Negro and colored to black. See, black suddenly one day became beautiful almost everywhere at once. In the passing through of those that were carrying this torch to illumine Black America in the earlier period of black art, black conferences, black everything. But even then, black folks still tremble when they heard the word black, you know. So we were understanding the problem of our psyche being disturbed with a concept that had no cultural value or validity in our own psychology. It didn't mean anything except dark. On the subconscious level, it meant dead, ugly, inferior, frightening, absenteeism. That's, if you look in the dictionary at the word black, it will strain your generous intellect to appreciate that concept. You know, will strain it. So getting through this thin veil of haze about identity has been and still is the ongoing revelation of the new or neo-Afrocentric age, an age that has yet to be announced. The European American has been having a new age cultural input for the last 30 years, if not longer. Around 1960, 65, they began their new age dialogue and began to present new age literatures. No such light was shown in the black world. So black folks who were, quote, intelligent Negroes went to European New Age conferences, New Age churches, New Age books, and came out whiter than the damn folks that were white in the class, you know. And that generosity of heart, this urgency to find love, and strangely enough, to find love from someone who has declared they do not love us first, showed the psychosis of black America's mental state. That's what Dr. King was placed in front of. Show these people we love them. You see, let them throw at us, let them do this. You know, what was the psychology that nonviolence and civil disobedience presented? And the East Indian had to do the same thing. The difference was the East Indian was the majority in India, is why his stuff worked. You see, and those that were hitting them in the head looked like them. You know, and many of them wrote later, they became physically ill at the thought of hitting their own people out of the service of policemen for the Britisher. You know, probably the only successful cultural protest on planet Earth as nonviolent. And the British packed up and went home, just as Mahatma Gandhi told them. That's all they had to do. He said, well, how are we going to do this? Just pack up and go home. It's that simple. You know. We have not been that fortunate. And the question is, do we need to be? Are we in the right place with the wrong identity, with a misconception of who we are, with a misconception of where we are? That becomes a clarity, like a vision, as one studies more of this body of knowledge and comes to the recognition of his and her divinity. The dictionary provides a very appropriate sample of this concept. I don't see one in the place. Under the B's, if you're looking for more, you'll find the concept right up under the term black. You'll find the term black amour, a coined concept from someone else's point of view, just as many terms underlined by MacRitchie in his book oh boy, I can't think of it, the name of MacRitchie's book. He dealt with the multiple levels of names in Scottish, British literatures, and in Scotland and Brittany that mean black. Hundreds of such names. As we all know, Schwarzenegger means black. The point of identity that the European Iberian, now called the Spaniard or Spanish, is the one that referred to the Moors as black. The emphasis is that a people don't call themselves by their complexion. That's not an identity, that's a descriptive. Just as the concept Egyptus was given by and is still presented by some European scholars and a couple of Negro scholars as an identity for the definitive of the concept Egypt. Burnt skin. See? Why in the world were the most powerful group of people in the Eastern Hemisphere articulate themselves as the ones of burnt skin? Does that make any sense to anybody? Okay, but again, we see the cloak. Each time we break down a term like that, we see the cloak, the screen, the smoke screen that prevented but satisfied the lay student, not the scholar, not the nervous searcher of truth, from pushing back the curtains to find the real definition or definitive. So from these advantage points, we're able to find a validity, a fact of this concept. In the genealogy of this man, is this man, Mizraim. This name is not a valid name, okay, until you add this. This is what our scholars have come up with as a replacement for this concept. Ham as Cam and Cam as Kim or Kemetic. Okay, is the articulation that the brothers are doing in the collegiate halls instead of Egypt. And they're still missing the point until they look at this man's name. Hammurabi, or Hammurabi, as I think C.M. Bay made reference to, and C.M. Bay not being orientated toward etymology, or being orientated toward etymology and being Pisces, did not break the term down. So he didn't give a breakdown of the genealogy. Cam, Moore, Rabi. Cam is given in the Metaphysical Dictionary as black fire. Moore is found lodged in the middle of these three titles. And Rabi means teacher or master. Rabi as opposed to rabbi. Okay. So we see that in the ancient language we find Cam is Camur. His son, one of his sons, is referred to as Misraim. I give the consonant abbreviation of this term so that we can see the transliteration in relationship to and validity of Dr. Budge in the one of his books. I was getting ready to say the commentary of the Book of the Dead, but I'm not sure it's in there, of this hieroglyphic found only by me. What Budge gives is in transliteration of this glyph is MR. The definitive or definition of MR he gives is governor, captain, and governor, captain, and one other. The owl universally, at once, simultaneously, means wisdom in every culture on the planet. This glyph is referred to as in Omo. That can be verified in two places. In the book, Robert Temple's The Mystery of Cyrus, he gives this glyph. And also in a book gone past now called The Philosophy of the Muntu Bantu philosophy. He gives Inomo as magic word or word of power. And this represents A, water, B, electricity. The Kemetic Moor's discovery of energy in water made the comparative of a generative picture of water waves as electrical power. So the definition coined here is Lord of the earth. Yes, the clarity here is that any vowel placed between those two consonants still produces more. The European gives M-A-U-R. This should not be, well, yeah, that's one spelling of it. M-A-U-R and M-A-U-R-U-S. In Castile's dictionary, he gives Maurus as Moor. None of the dictionaries, none of the scholars in all of the three books that I know of gave the definition, which tells me one thing. A, they didn't know what it meant. B, they were Masons and were given to the oath and could not give it, including Dr. Yosef ben Yochanan did not give the definitive of Moor. He is also an international Mason. Yes, sir. The keeping of the secret for the European Mason was to prevent the black family from finding the knowledge. Secondly, first, this knowledge came from the school, the house of secrets. The book of the master of the secret house is the book they refer to as the Book of the Dead. The term Book of the Dead is only in reference to, you want to buy Dead Men Book? Dead Men Book is what the Arabians were asking the Europeans when they found out that these papyri were valuable and they could sell them. So Bud simply called it Book of the Dead. Then inwardly it was discovered that the reference point was exoterically the book of the coming forth by day and the coming forth by night, which is two spiritual processes. But the book is referred to from two perspectives: the book of the mistress of the secret house and the book of the master of the secret house. Two terms that both mean master. Mistress means master in the feminine. Mister means master in the masculine. The word meister is where the word mister comes from. The word maestro is also of the same origin as mister in the Italian language. So in terms of name, we can validate this idea of Moor from those three given areas. There are not many literatures in the history departments that illuminate these records of the past. The four that I know of that are available are A, Nature Knows No Color Line, J.A. Rogers, The Golden Age of the Moors, Ivan van Sertima, The Golden Trade of the Moors, E.B. Bovill, B-O-V-I-L-L, may still be available. The Golden Trade of the Moors, a book about the African Moors of West Africa, whereas what you'll find the literatures I just talked about present mostly a point of view of the East North African, the ones who readily went into Cadiz of Iberia, which is directly across from the very northern tip of Europe at the point or port called the Port of Kuta, is the point of entrance and accessibility of the African to Europe. You could virtually swim from Africa to Europe from the Port of Kuta, where the first known invasion of that group who lived in Mauritania, town of the Moors. Morocco, the rock place of the Moors. Marrakesh, the place of the Moors. You'll find those on the map. Not seemingly refer to as having any significance in the Negro history classes that are going on in America, where most of the time there are no African maps in the classroom, where there are African descendants, where most of the time the teachers that teach Negro United States colored history have no such map at home. So the problem of where we are gets to be a consciousness problem, gets to be a problem of human psychology. If a human being cannot describe, define, or locate where he is, he then is disoriented. See? In the cultural picture, the problem of geographical amnesia is a valid mental illness for almost 80% of the black population. See? As I heard the second week I was here, a Negro colored fella over by Pascal's say one day? I ain't no damn African. I'm a Negro. I'm a colored man. This is 1986. You know? So we're understanding disorientation. But what we need to know is there's a reason for it. Not wholly the problem of the dark-skinned, broad-nosed, and thick-lipped, furled-haired human being known as Moors. Yes?
And just the correct manner of speaking
Mm-hmm.
is the African, the Moor, or the Moor.
Yeah. Go ahead, work with it, my brother.
And in my mind, there is no difference, but contextually, from your point of view, what is the difference in that?
Okay. Another very good question that usually I don't get to deal with until later, but I'm glad you brought it up. The politics of Pan-Africanism and the problems needing solutions of the disunification of the African in sympathetic reach by the Moors' sleep in America to adorn the idea of being African Americans was one of identification with virtually a piece of property. That's a very poor depiction of an African map, but as close as I can get at the moment. And if you look in the dictionary, you will find this word, but there's no definition for it. You will find it under a map. So if you ask an African, what does the word Africa mean? You will get a long pause of silence, or you'll get Daffy Duck. That again, the scholar found no need to research it, and if he did, he looked usually in the Greco-Latin Roman text. That's the hieroglyphic that you'll find in commentary on Book of the Dead, and also you'll find in G.A. Gaskell's Dictionary of All Mythologies and All Scriptures and Mythologies, the concept aphora. The Spirit led me directly to the concept and then showed me that was the root derivative of the concept Africa. This is a asit or asti, the many-legged thing, the original organ of life, form. That's what it represents. Not a very good depiction, excuse my artwork. These are 3 drops of semen. This is the sun. This is Afu, flesh. This is Ra, God. Afura, flesh of God. What Budge translated it to was the dead flesh of God. Figure that one out. How can God have any dead flesh? That's an amazing contradiction even to the most fundamentalist. You're going off here, my brother. Thank you. That's a tornado warning, yeah. Yeah. All that the way white folks are. Yeah. Yeah, well, they ought to be watching it because it's definitely up for grabs. We're in tornado season, so it's not anything that's startling, surprising. It's just that they come suddenly, like a ghost in the damn night. Let me get back here before I start running off here. I see Jim and I is getting ready to grab something and run with it. So the idea here is one of descriptive. The concept of name, of person, is the concept gained from the state of what is called eponymy, or the eponymistic state. In that antiquity, a group of people, a particular man, as we look back in our chronology, whose name was Camur, or An Misraim, and went east of Eden, as Yosef ben Yachanan points out, to a plaque that they call Giza, cleared this enormous piece of swamp property, drained it dry near the greatest river on the planet. Why? Because of two things. A, it flowed upstream. Two, it brought, when it came upstream, the topsoil of 4,010 miles away from where they were, the richest soil in that entire geographical line of direction. And they, at that point, were able to settle there, stay there, plant, cook, eat there, and sit down, as Dr. John Henry Clark said, for the first time the African discovered that if he could sit down and think, he could build him a world. And that's what the cursed one, Ham's family, did. And out of that thinking, they built the greatest buildings on planet Earth. There they unraveled the mystery of God. You see. There they were able to sit down on a pyramid 4,800 feet high at night and watch the stars parade across the horizon in clear view and map out the heavens. Then they were able to build that building that contains all of the mathematics on planet Earth, because they discovered the cross, the font of, the foundation of all mathematical knowledge. So, in agreement with, and you'll hear me use the term African Moors, I'm in agreement with that identity, not with identifying with the property, but with identification with the people who came from that property, and we carry their genetic code and their blood. And the reason we know that, wherever we go, we keep making dark skin, broad nose, thick lips, and furrowed hair. It doesn't matter what language we speak, what songs we sing, or what clothes we wear. We're of the same family line that dominates human genetics when entered the female body. So eponymistic is the parent who gives his name to his woman and his name to his children and his name to the property that he settles his family on. That is the eponymistic state. Not from the property to the man, but from the man to the property. Okay. There may have been someone called Afura. It was a ritualistic title in the process of initiation, so perhaps it was used as a title. Osiris, and Caesar. If you look carefully, you see the comparative translation of how a European became a Caesar by using the same methodology of the secret house as the ancient Kemetic Moors, but under the banner of another language. The Caesar was a god king. The Kemetic Moor, Pira, called Pharaoh, was a god king. He just happened to be god king before the European was even known to be on the planet. That's what John Henry Clark underlined for us. He said almost 3/4 of human history was over before anyone knew that a European was on the planet. So in looking at a concept, not at a book, the book referred to, and I didn't do the whole concept there, though I should have, because this is a very valid word here, as a man I'll make reference to in a minute used. The Holy Moorish Temple. I put that in quotes there because, again, I'm going to explain it. The first public presentation of this information happened through, as we know, best know, from Timothy Drew, who became Noble Drew Ali, who founded the Moorish Science Temple in approximately the early 20s in Newark, New Jersey, then moving from Newark, New Jersey to Chicago, Illinois. He wrote a little pamphlet called the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple, I think is the way I should have it here. I don't want to misquote. But it does not say he wrote it. It says at the bottom, prepared by Honorable or Noble Drew Ali. At that point, and this is the analysis that I like to offer as why he tried to take a science and make it a religion, is because he had a group of illiterate Negroes who not only, most of them could not read, but that was not the priority of the 1920s. The 1920s priority was get something on the plate every day for people who were 60 to 70% unemployed, who were shine boys and maids, newsboys, who picked up the scraps behind the marketplace when they were thrown away. The gizzards, the liver, the feet, and the wings were free after dark. See, that was priority. Remember, we're talking approximately 6 years before the grand stock market crash of the 20s. See? And we were already on the bottom. So the intent was to move this people from a believer's level of an invisible God to a believer's level in a visible people. Was the work that he first initiated and did quite well, coming behind or almost unilaterally at the time of Garvey, who had the majority of black folks organized in America. So, holios, a term of Greek origin, does not mean holy as we conceive it, that is, so reverent that we almost bow down when we hear it, but simply means heat, fire, or sun. As biblos simply means book. Virtually translation, the Holy Bible means book of the sun, or book of light, or the book of fire. The Holy Temple, if we look at the concept, know ye not your body is the temple of God, then we have an understanding of the concept holy temple, referring to the body of light, the human body of light. And of course, we just define Moor and Moorish. But this word here created quite an argument among Orthodox Muslims and the uneducated but somewhat aware card-carrying Moors of the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and even up to right today. Some of them cannot tell you what this word means. They are looking at this concept here, which is a translation from the Arabic, Quran, and brothers get all articulate when they start dealing with this. Brothers go all down in the throat. The Quran, brother. You must study the Quran. Let me write this correctly here. As you will find, there is this introduction to the Codex Inscriptus as you move into the knowledge of Moorish science. That becomes the foundation of what Moorish science is, as opposed to some book or some belief system or some lodge or temple. We see this word is completely different from this word. The first two letters automatically show that difference. Knowledge, order, rhythm, astrology, and nature. There isn't anything left. The knowledge of the order of things, the knowledge of the rhythm of things, the knowledge of the universe, the solar system in its behavior, its power, its definition, its meaning, and the knowledge of nature. Human nature, God's nature, and the nature of nature is Moorish science as a study, the real book of Quran. Okay, everybody got that one? That's my latest revelation. That is not in anybody's book. When you look carefully at the cover of the Quran, Circle 7, it's called, you will see something a little bit better artistically presented than my circle here. You'll see slight niches at the 4 points of the circle, which tells the knowledgeable student or more that that's not a circle, but a zodiac. And that those 4 notches represents the cross. Immediately is what it tells you. And if it represents that cross, it then tells them that there are 12 points in that circle that are symbolized by 12 symbolic signs, which then presents them with the concept of Zudikaios, the mother. The circle that everyone is in. The circle where there are only 12 blueprints of human beings all over planet Earth. Wherever you go, whomever you meet, from Monday to Sunday, from one day to the next, from now on until something comes from outer space, everyone you meet will be one of these 12 beings in that circle. The 7 represents the 7 planets, the 7 laws that govern those planets and the mind that we live, move, and have our being in. And one teacher's trying to say these are 7 forces when there's only one power performing in 12 different ways on a characteristic trait level and on a planetary level, performing in 9 different ways. But the balance of things is 7, the most mystical, secretive number among the 0 to 9 numbers is 7, which happens to, strangely enough, in the numerological breakdown of names, oh, okay, I got them all. 9 and 6 is 15, and 6 is 21, and 4 is 25, and 25 is 7, the perfect number. Thereby, more is the perfect name. There's a whole philosophic on this number 7. We'll get to more of that later on. Okay. The quest then is, what is this identity that allows us to rationally conceive of being in a place that is advantageous to a human being who has become mature? It is when you turn to John chapter 10, verses 31 to 36, and the argument between Jesus and the Pharisees or Sadducees or Jews, African colored Negro fellows. And they were accusing him of all sorts of things, as the book so reads. And he replies, I've told you I've done for you many good things. For which of these good things do you stone me? And their reply is, we stone you not for doing good, but you, being a man, make yourself out to be God. And Jesus replied, does not your scriptures say that ye are gods? And if your scriptures so read, they cannot be changed. The scripture he's referring to is found in Psalm 82, verse 5 through 9, or 8. They go on in darkness, knowing nothing. Did I not tell you that you are gods, children of the Most High? Yet you shall die like men and princes. So the definitive, yes, is given in this Codex Inscriptus concept. This concept comes from the German word gut, which translates directly to good. So the Kabbalistic writer simply did this. And it gave him the keys to write this. Generator, brain. Operator, soul. Destroyer, the sacral vertebrae, where the Kundalini rests. G, O, D is the Codex Inscriptus of what we call God. That is not infinity. That is not the creator. That is a woman and a man. The first man being this man, can you see that? Can you see that? Anybody? Okay, because I got some other markings up there. I want to make sure it makes sense to you. This eraser does not erase much, as you have noted. I'll put that on tape for critique for future time. This womb man is defined by this symbol under this sign. And she is the one who produces this symbol under this sign. Moon, star is mother and son is the ancient word for mother is which gives us that concept. Okay? But before you can get there, and here's where we go further into the Codex Inscriptus, the Kabbalistic keys of Moorish science, the keys that unlock the hidden knowledge in every scripture, though we won't find the concept Morus, Ma, Moor there, we will certainly find Lord there. I got two thoughts at once there. Let me go ahead and deal with this one first. Lord of the earth. That's any dark-skinned, broad-nosed, thick-lipped and furrowed-haired human being wherever you might see, hear, observe them, him. As whether they know it or not, or agree with it or not. It does not change it. What you're trying to become supersedes this concept by simply doing this. That's what makes you a cultured Moor. Can you see that? That's right. When your heart becomes spiritualized and illumined, that is what takes you from Lord of the earth to Lord of heaven. This concept translates to this concept, which cannot be broken, which men cannot make. Nature makes law, men makes rules, ordinances, and policy. This wall you can break down. This wall you cannot break down.